Bookaholics is a safe place for reading junkies who obsess over books, authors, bookstores, book news, and book trivia. We'll nerd out with book reviews, author interviews, our habit, and other bookish things. Here is your host, Deirdre Pippins.
Hi, Bookaholics. Today we are continuing the Writer's Workshop with Leon Conrad, one of my international guests. He is an entertaining and knowledgeable writer and lecturer, a very sensitive story structure consultant and editor who helps writers craft their work at every stage of the writing process. He's also a tutor. He's also a voice-centered communications coach. I think you'll learn a lot from Leon Conrad, who has written a book titled Story and Structure, A Complete Guide. Stay tuned. We'll talk to him after this. Hi, Leon. Welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, we are so glad to have you. And as my viewers know, throughout this year, I've had a series called The Writer's Workshop. And people from all over the world have joined me in my podcast and on my YouTube channel. And they give different advice and coaching information about those who are struggling writers and they just can't seem to get themselves together. And I know a lot of avid readers out there are struggling writers or wannabe writers, and so I decided to give them some free help through all the wonderful coaches that I've had on this show. And you, my friend, are amongst those, and so I can't wait to talk to you about your business and all the things that you do. So you ready to get started?
I am ready, Deirdre.
I know you are. Ready. Well, so you're also part of my international guest. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel also dedicated to all of my international guests because I want to show all types of diversity in the authors that I interview, not only genres, and those type of things, but also the voices of different people. And I think that really matters when you're reading and entertaining yourself or educating yourself. It's always great to hear different voices. And speaking of voices, you are helping writers, authors out there with their voice, and you have a book that has yet to come out or it has come out.
It's out in the UK. It's out in a hardback edition, and the paperback edition is coming out on the 1st of November.
Okay, that's where I got the November. And your book is called Story and Structure, A Complete Guide, and it's coming out. When was it coming out here in the States? Oh, I love it.
1st of November.
Oh, that?
Okay, so just after Halloween.
Got it. We get that version. Well, wonderful. So tell me why you wanted to write this book.
So this book came out of a puzzle, a riddle, a question that got under my skin. You know, those types of questions that you feel, I want to get the answer to that.
Okay.
And the question was this: how come this very respected writer I love the work of, who is a specialist in narrative, he wrote the Cambridge Guide to Narrative, he's called H. Porter Abbott, is so sure that what makes the story of Cinderella is a question we can never find the answer to. He wrote something like that in his book, and it stopped me in my tracks.
Okay.
That was about 10, 12 years ago. And it started me on a 10-year journey to find out exactly what makes the story of Cinderella the story of Cinderella, which is not an easy task, considering that there are around 1,500 estimated versions of the story.
Right. Okay.
Across different cultures, across different time spans. And it all boils down to story structure.
Got you. Now, before we go on, who is credited to writing the story of Cinderella? Was that one of the
Oh,
brothers Grimm or?
no, the earliest versions go back to ancient Egypt, Deirdre.
Really?
And this is the thing,
Wow.
stories are first held in oral traditions, and
Right.
then they're written
Correct.
down. I come from a
Yes.
background of training public speakers, of performance poetry, of storytelling. And so
Hmm.
the telling of a tale live, the ability to keep an audience, to entertain them, to move them with your voice, with your words in real time, is really
Yeah.
important to me. When you
Yeah.
go back to cultures like, I'm thinking of ancient Greece, I'm thinking of ancient Egypt. I grew up in Egypt. I spent 12
Okay.
years of my life there in Alexandria. And that's
Okay.
where I came across an oral tradition of storytelling for the first time.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I've never forgotten it. It was a seminal
Yeah.
experience. And
Yes.
that's what I've been inspired by
Wow.
all through my own career, teaching voice, teaching public speaking, working with writers as an editor and as a storyteller. And that inspiration has led me to look at story structure in a very different way to just the way in which a writer might look at story structure.
Got you. Got you. Well, let's break it down. Let's break down the Cinderella story. And you tell us about the story structure and what makes it so compelling.
Okay, so in my book, I explain that there are 18 story structures I have discovered to date. They're
Okay.
all distinct, and what makes them distinct is their starting points.
Oh.
You map the story structure to an individual character's storyline.
Okay.
And there are two ways of telling a story.
Okay.
There are two ways in which story unfolds. That would be a better way of putting it.
Okay.
There's the time of the tale, and that is how the tale unfolds in a character's storyline in chronological order. The events happen one after the other.
Right.
That's the time of the tale.
Right.
Then there's the time of the telling. You can tell that story in any order, right?
Yeah.
That's where flashbacks come in. That's where flash forwards come in. That's where
Yeah.
suspense and surprise come in.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that right
Okay.
now. I
Okay.
want to talk about the time of the tale where
Okay.
things happen.
Okay.
Cinderella
Yes.
starts off happy. She's got a loving father, she's got a loving mother,
Yes.
and they're all prepared to bring her into society. Their eyes are on the goal. She's going to be presented at court. She's going to make a good match. That's what the goal was in those days.
Right.
Marry well.
Right.
And this is
Right.
common as old as the story goes back. It's
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
positive beginning that makes the rags to riches structure, which is what I've called the Cinderella structure, the rags
Yeah.
to riches structure, stand out, be distinct from all
Yes.
the other structures I have found.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's
Right.
just one example of how I classify story structures, is by
Mhm.
the initial step.
Okay, so Cinderella, now my version of Cinderella that I've always read, her mother was already deceased, but she had the loving father. And it sounded like that the new woman, her stepmother that he married, it sounded initially like, oh, this will be great. She's getting a stepmother, she's getting some stepsisters, this will be great. But as soon as the father maybe goes out of town, he takes some type of extensive trip because all of this stuff is happening, and then maybe he dies later, then things unravel after that.
Exactly. So you still have the positive beginning, don't you?
Yes, yes, you do. You still have the positive beginning. You
And
do.
there's something about that positive beginning, whether it is implied or whether it is stated, that
Right.
makes the story flow through her storyline. And it
Right.
makes the ending make so much more sense because she's back where she belongs.
Yes. Right. Correct. Correct.
And it's
Now,
those hidden gems, those hidden links that I've been able to uncover and reveal in my book.
well, let me go to another kind of I'm reading a book right now called Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. So it's suspense, there's a murder. So that's the beginning of this book. There's a murder, you know, and this guy's in a tub and he's bled out. So what would you term that kind of beginning of
Okay,
structure?
so that is a clear example of what I'm talking about in distinguishing the time of the telling
Mm,
from the time of the tale.
okay.
Because if this book does not explain who committed the murder and why,
Mhm. Right.
are you going to be satisfied as a reader?
Well, I guess eventually it will, but that's how it starts. Now, this book also does flashbacks. So this is a time of the telling.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And, maybe an author will play with the genre. Maybe they will tell a conventional detective or murder tale
Yeah.
without revealing who done
Mhm.
it and
Right.
why, without revealing motive and opportunity and all that. And that would be breaking the rules to prove a point, to do an artistic thing.
Hmm.
But they're breaking the rules
Okay.
because the rules are so fixed as part of the genre,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
what I do in looking at story structure, the time of the tale, is say, what's the earliest event that is covered in this story?
Right.
It
Okay.
isn't going to be that the murderer was born on a certain day at a certain time in a
Right.
certain family. It's unlikely.
Right.
You're going to dip into their storyline at a seminal moment that will lead
Right.
to their motivation for committing the murder. Then you're engaged. You don't want to waste time on unnecessary stuff.
Right. Right. Right.
It's
Right.
necessary to the character, but it isn't necessary to the story that's being told.
Got you. Now, so let me see if I can follow what is perhaps in your book, because of course we're not going to explore all 18 story structures, but we do want to mention some. That's why you should buy the book so that you can learn the story structures. So let's say your book is divided into the telling of the tale and I had just said it a few seconds ago. So the telling of the tale and
The time of the telling and the time of the tale.
okay, so you have those two, but then you break out the 18 story structures beneath both of those, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And the thing about the book is that I do it in 6 very simple, very visually intuitive primary symbols.
Okay.
And those symbols are as follows. The first one is for openings and closings. And because I come from an oral story structure
Mhm.
background, I think the once upon a times and the happily ever afters are really important.
Okay.
They came into the way we tell stories way before written stories existed.
Mhm.
But when you come across a book, you come across the book cover and you open the book
Right.
cover
Right.
and you get a table of contents, and that's the
Right.
character of the book. And
Right.
that's exactly what happens in a story. You
Right.
have an opening, and then once upon a time, there was, and
Right.
you meet a character in an
Right.
opening situation, a who, when, where, in
Right.
what condition, right? So
Right.
that's the second symbol. The second symbol is like a mark that stands for a character.
Right.
And you use that mark for the initial and the final situations in which a character is found in the story. Okay? So those
Wow.
are the frames. We've got
Right.
2 symbols so far. Within the story, as events unfold,
Mhm.
we have events that propel a character forward. They're
Right.
fortunate events if you like to see them like that. And
Right.
they're symbolized by forward barbs, like little arrows, except you only have
Mhm.
one bit at the end.
Okay.
Anything that stops a character in their tracks is symbolized by a backward barb. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's this backwards, forwards movement that I trace through a story.
Gotcha.
And while the symbols are like a little logical system, because they appear, they reflect the movement that's happening in a story, you get that
Right.
pull backwards when you see a
Right.
backward barb and yes, let's move
Right.
forward, right?
Right.
So they link intuitively to what drives a story forward, which is the emotion. It's
Mhm.
that emotional impulse,
Mhm.
okay?
Mhm. Exactly.
And we could do it right now. Do you want to play a game?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, so this game has 6 moves, okay? And
Okay.
it's a game called Fortunately, Unfortunately. We're going to
Okay.
tell a story in 6 moves. You get to choose who the character is,
Okay.
and you get to choose whether they start in a fortunate position or an unfortunate position.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, I get okay. So my character is going to start in an unfortunate situation.
Okay, and who is your character?
Oh gosh. Me.
You.
Okay. Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
Choose a time, choose a place. It can be real, it can be made up.
Oh gosh. I'm in Paris, and it's 1965.
And you said unfortunate. What's happening?
Unfortunate. I'm in Paris. It's 1965, and I have no money, and I can't speak the language.
Fortunately, you meet someone who can speak English and wants to help you.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, your turn. This is
Oh,
step
I know
3.
I gotta do it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Oh, God. Okay, so unfortunately, okay, let me get it. It's a French guy, and I don't trust him.
Fortunately, an English person comes along who is eminently trustworthy, shoves the French person who is definitely not trustworthy away, and offers to escort you to the Eiffel Tower.
Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So now I do unfortunate.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to go to the Eiffel Tower. I just want to see it from afar, to see the whole thing. I don't want to go up close because I'm afraid this person may take me up, and I'm afraid of heights.
Fortunately, the English gentleman is very understanding and he offers to take you to a place where you can have a beautiful view of Paris. He shows you exactly where it is on the map. He shows you where you can find friends of an American community that will show you around, introduces you to a local guide who speaks English, and disappears from your life
Oh,
into the shadows.
oh no, that's unfortunate.
But you can choose to end the story, fortunately, if you wish.
Oh, well, he may disappear. He disappears in the shadows. That's the bad part. I would just rather him just be able to go back to, say, London.
Only to reappear
Only to
the next
what?
morning with fresh croissants, an invitation to coffee, and a beautiful friendship evolves.
Oh, I like that. But if I were struggling with writing, playing that game could loosen me up a bit
And
And
that's the whole point of the thing. Now,
yes.
the book works on two levels. It works on
Okay.
this fun, delightful level where you feel the energy of story flow naturally through
Mhm.
you. And
Mhm.
then it works on a very rigorous intellectual level.
Oh,
I
wow.
map the things, I give clear tables, I show the structures. And because you've linked to it emotionally, you can then bring in the intellectual, rational part and understand it very clearly.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
story has these two levels. It hits you emotionally, but you have to make sense of it rationally as well.
Right. Right.
Okay. Now,
Exactly.
those are the two symbols I use for mapping the nature of events. But there's another symbol, and
Okay.
we're on to symbol 5 here,
Okay.
which is a double barb. It goes both ways.
Okay.
And you experience that at the end in the time of the telling, when there was something that made you go, I
Right.
wasn't expecting that, huh? You what
Right.
now? What's that all about? It's the
Right.
surprise move, it's the trickster move, it's the
Hmm.
paradox, it's the riddle that needs to be solved.
Hmm.
You don't
Hmm.
know whether you're coming or going, you don't know whether to move forwards, you don't know whether to move backwards, you're kind of
Mhm.
stuck.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
double barb symbol. And
Okay.
those come in pairs. You get
Okay.
a huh, and it
Right.
rolls into an ah. And that's
Ah.
exactly what we experienced.
Now that's not, of course, that can't be at the same time. The huh,
No,
ah,
no.
so how do you explain that in the book about the timing of that, the huh, and then the revealing of the aha?
Well, one of the ways in which it works is that they usually happen as a result of two characters meeting.
Okay.
And in a trickster structure, one character will be out to trick the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get this in Brer Rabbit stories, you get this in Tom and Jerry cartoons.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And as a result, there's a deep-seated need to trick the trickster, to turn the tables, right, to get your revenge.
Yes. Yes.
But what I show in the book is that, yeah, it works as a story. How many Tom and Jerry cartoons are there? How many fables that involve Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many Anansi
Tortoise and the
stories
hare.
are there? Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We
Wow.
love them. We love the trickster. And
Yes.
yet things never get resolved.
Right. Right.
It's
Right.
the repeating cycle. And so if you get caught in the trickster loop,
Mm-hmm.
unless you do something to break that cycle, you're going to be stuck in this cycle of
Right.
revenge and bitterness. And that is the link to the story structures we use in our everyday lives. If you understand how story structure works on the level of a fable or a folk
Yeah.
tale,
Yes. Yes.
and map it to what's happening in your own life,
Right.
you can
Right.
realize that if you're stuck in the trickster loop, the best way out of that, as I reveal in the book, is
Huh?
to go on a quest.
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh gosh, this is just like opening up my mind, because I've often thought about how do people sit down and begin to write a story or a book, that's not, say, one that's their own story, a memoir, autobiography, or whatever have you, that your story, but this other, writing a fictional story, this takes out writer's block. It takes out anxiousness. If you start with this, you'll be able to propel yourself forward with your story.
And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, to give people some blueprints to use that
Yes.
link to characters with particular types of problems.
Yes.
The
Yes.
the book is hefty, right? It's thick.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it deals mostly with the time of the tale story structure.
Right.
I'm working on a new book, which should be out next year, 2023,
Okay.
called Master the Art and Craft of Writing. And
Okay.
that is all about the time of the telling.
Right.
And to get people interested in that already,
Mm-hmm.
I do a monthly writing competition on Substack. And
Oh,
you can look me up, leonconrad.substack.com.
I saw that link.
Every month up to March 2023, I'm looking at a particular aspect of storytelling, whether it's characterization, whether it's looking at links, whether it's looking at description, whether it's looking at sounds and the roles that sounds have in the way
Yeah.
we tell stories. Really important, sounds and
Yeah.
rhythms.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Every month, you
Yes.
get a chance not just to enter a competition, but also to learn through a series of exercises on that
Right.
month's theme. Everyone who enters or subscribes to the newsletter will get a free sampler of exercises. The
Okay.
first 50 people to enter will get a free copy of the book when it comes out.
Oh.
And the winner every month gets a £10 Amazon gift voucher.
Oh.
Everyone's a winner.
Everybody is a winner in this game. Well, before we, first of all, just to let everyone know, we will have all of Leon's information and contact in the show notes of the podcast and also in the description of the YouTube video. So don't worry about the links to the Substack and his website. We'll have all of that down for you with a direct link. Really quickly, I want to talk to you about three remaining things. The mapping of the story. Now, you give the story structure, but what would you advise? Because everybody's different. You know, some people probably want to map out their story with a pen and paper. Others probably go to the internet. What actual tools would you recommend to folks who actually want to map out the story and see the characters and all of these things?
Well, I use pen and paper, Deirdre, but I
Okay.
also use the computer. It's very simple. Many of the symbols are available as parts of fonts. If they're not, you can improvise. And it's really what is right for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I use Excel a lot and do spreadsheets where I map
Right.
each character's storyline and the events and number them.
Right. Right.
But that's just me. I use
Right.
paper and pen a lot.
Yes, and I know that there is, I can see me, if this was me, I'd probably start with pen and paper. But as I got more advanced, I think I would transfer pen and paper to maybe something like a mind mapping. There's a lot of mind mapping websites out there that you could do something on as well. So that might be helpful to some people. I think Miro, Miro, might be an example of a mind mapping program. But
But
anyway, I
to be honest, pencil and paper is the easiest thing.
yeah,
This
yes.
is the story structure of your storyline, and you can see
Oh my
that
gosh.
there are
You
your initials. That's
am.
the opening. That's your
Yes,
character. That's
yes.
the initial unfortunate. That's when you met the Frenchman. That's when you met the Englishman. That's when he saved you from the Frenchman.
Oh my
And
God.
that's when he took you to where you wanted to go. And that's where it was a happy ending.
Oh my
And that's the closing. And that's the ending position. And that's the closing. It's
Oh
that
my
simple. It
gosh.
really is that simple.
Wow, that is fantastic. Oh wow. And so now I know what you mean by those symbols. You did actually mean symbols. Oh wow. That is so clear. Now let
Good.
me
I'm glad you think so, because it is the number of the symbols
yes.
that you get when you whittle a story down to its bare bones,
Yes.
and the quality of the symbols that is what gives you the different story structures. And these symbols
Yes.
come from the work of my mentor, George Spencer Brown, who sadly died several years ago, but I knew him in the last 4 years of his life. He wrote a
Mhm.
book called Laws of Form, which was an inspiration to me. It's been used a lot in maths and system theory and social systems,
Yes.
and hasn't been applied rigorously or comprehensively until now. in
Right.
terms of the analysis of stories. So I bring something new to the field.
Oh, very, very much so. Now, you prior to our interview, I was telling you about my sadly sick story here in the fall season, and you said that was a story structure. Could you tell me what story structure that was?
Well, yes, it was a quest structure that loops, very similar to the Three Little Pigs. So
Oh my
you told me that you were feeling a bit down and you couldn't explain why your mouth was hurting, so you decided to look for some help. You took some Tylenol, that didn't help. You went to the dentist, that didn't help. They couldn't find anything wrong. And then your husband said, "Why don't you take a COVID test?" And
Yeah.
hey, presto, the first result came back positive. And you said, "I don't believe I've got COVID. That must be wrong." And you took another test, and hey, presto, the second one was positive as well. So you took to your bed with lots of loving care for your family, lots of medication, lots of healing time for your body to recover.
Yeah.
And here you are,
Here I am.
thriving, flourishing in good health
Oh
once
my
more,
gosh.
and long may it last.
May it long last, please.
But that is exactly the same structure as this, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is the opening. That is
Yes.
you as the character. That's your problem. You go on a journey, you meet a friend or helper. But the
Yes.
friend or helper leads you to the solution which doesn't work. So you're back with the problem again.
Yes.
And you go on a try, try,
Yes.
try again journey until
Yes.
finally you
Yeah.
end up with a
Yeah.
solution that allows you to flourish and the story can close.
Gosh. Now, let me ask you, and please be honest. Do you do this in your personal relationships? Is it kind of like every time somebody tells you something, you're like, okay, that's the story structure. Do you get in trouble?
Deirdre, I use it on myself and it keeps me sane.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
And I use it with writers.
Yeah.
Writers come to me for a specific skill I have, which is to work on story structure. We find
Hmm.
plot holes, we find ways of mapping a character storyline more compellingly. And if they want to work on the second level, that's the time of the telling, the writing skills, the ways of telling the story, because you could tell a story in many, many ways. We do that as well. But my particular skill is working on story structure. And I do bespoke consultancies for writers at every level. I have helped 7-year-olds publish their first books, and
Wow.
I've helped establish academic authors work on papers who've
Yeah.
gone on to win prizes.
Yes.
It
Yes.
runs across the full gamut.
Wow. Wow. Well, my last thing that I really wanted to talk to you about was audiobooks because you expressed the importance of oral telling of stories and also the voice, the tone. Apparently, you must be a fan of audiobooks.
Actually, I'm not. I'm a fan of live oral storytelling. Very
Okay.
often, I'll pick up a book and I do not like the reader's voice.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
something about it, either the voice or the accent, that is wrong. And it's the same with films. Have you ever seen a film of a book you've read and you think, that's not how I imagined the characters?
Correct. That yes. Yes. All day,
But
every day.
with a live storyteller, there's more of an interaction. And a
Yes.
live storyteller will usually, unless they're a very good actor doing an audiobook, the live storyteller will usually be very good at portraying the characters. They'll do it physically, they'll bring you into the space, and they'll spark your imagination in a way that recorded versions of a literary text cannot, because they're creating the story in the moment, live. They're responding to
Yeah.
the energy in the room,
Yes.
and you're giving them that energy, so they're responding to your energy.
Right.
And when that works, it is magic.
Yes, I can see that all day, every day. Well, the book is again titled Story and Structure, a Complete Guide, and it's been shortlisted for the People's Book Prize in the UK. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And listeners can go on to the People's Book Prize website and vote for the book. It's one of the ones that are shortlisted in the non-fiction category, and I would very much welcome your vote. It would be great to get your support.
Yes, and again, we can have that link also in the show notes and in the video description on YouTube as well.
And the link is live between October 2022 and the end of April 2023.
Oh, wow, great. And so that's a good long time. But I suggest that people do all of this as soon as possible while it's fresh on your mind.
Exactly. So if you're listening to this podcast at some point, we're recording it now in October 22, but if you're listening to it down the line, it's not too late.
It's not. Exactly.
Go cast your vote.
Well, Leon, thank you so much. I know you have helped my audience and given them hope on writing a story and giving them the methodology, the blueprint to getting their stories done.
It's
Thank
just
you
a
so much.
taster, Deirdre, and there is much, much more in the book.
Yes.
It has a lot of depth in it, and it's fun. It's
Yeah.
not all intellectual. It grabs you emotionally, and I hope that people get a lot out of it, and I look forward to hearing from people, see how they've engaged with the book. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, no problem. Thank you. And congratulations again. I love it.
Thank you.
Bookaholics is a safe place for reading junkies who obsess over books, authors, bookstores, book news, and book trivia. We'll nerd out with book reviews, author interviews, our habit, and other bookish things. Here is your host, Deirdre Pippins.